I'm gonna let him know right now. Okay. Hey guys, go to our MMA Power Hour page to see the live show coming at you in a minute or two.
All right, and we're gonna come in, and I've already got the audio rolling, everybody, and get ready to feel
the power.
That's Colin, Crandall, myself, Adam Roorda here with another episode of MMA Power Hour. I know we've kind of been stagnant for a little while on the page, but figured we'd change things up a little bit instead of inside of the group, and we'll share it to the group here after a little bit from the page. But glad to have you all here. This show is brought to you by none other than Lith Token. It's LITH token.io. Cryptocurrency of choice for everybody looking to get into environmental social governance without all the politics. If you care about cleaning up cities like Los Angeles and Seattle and New York and Portland and Dallas and everywhere that actually needs it, the cities.
Yeah, God knows those cities need it.
We're removing politics from it all, really. Let's get real. There are places that everything's done wrong, and let's bring sustainability and ethics to the forefront without being all political about it. There's no point.
No, exactly.
So clean up the world, make it a better place.
Without a doubt. And I got to tell you, you were right about that ARXR, man. It took me all weekend to get everything fixed up in all my systems and platforms. But if you're not on that ARXR, it's almost like you're on dial-up for your internet connection.
A lot of people don't even know how to access ARXR stuff right now, but you can go to Best Buy and buy yourself a headset for VR AR stuff.
Yeah.
AR is more on the phone. We're using that a lot. It's a fun world we're going to be going into. The next stage is, man, there's like contact lenses that are out now that you can see like different interfaces. There's glasses that you can buy that are really normal looking. They don't look like the weird Google Glass that came out a long time ago.
Right.
I mean, it's starting to change, man. We're going to be able to just go out and engage and interact with people, and instead of holding up a phone or anything else, you'll just have one earpiece in. You'll be wearing a ring on your pointer finger, and you'll be able to point at things, and that works like the mouse or whatever in front of you. Nobody else will see what you're seeing, but you're going to be able to see an interface in front of you that you'll be able to click on by just pointing your finger at it real quick, and all of a sudden you have these cool, different graphics popping up and figuring out what that is.
I like that. And also Dana White says they're working on doing a fight card in the metaverse. Can you explain what that might look like for people?
I mean, really, if you're talking about like Meta, the company Meta, I don't know that it's going to be all that special. Being able to do volumetric capture, which is a type of like green screen where you get in like these 3D models of all the fighters and stuff in real time, is going to be kind of crazy. I think Facebook would be the ones that could do it, or Meta. But really it breaks down to being able to capture the people there live, but being able to have a virtual reality headset on and being able to look around and feel like you're there live. So
wow, so that is really cool, especially for people that can't go to a live event or haven't ever been, or don't
spending about the same amount of money on a ticket. So
wow, so it'd be a little bit spendy. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, not necessarily. It's about the same amount for a ticket and a pay-per-view anymore.
Yeah, if you want the nosebleed seats nowadays, the pay-per-view, even though they're $74.95, for a UFC ticket, $74.95 puts you way up in the nosebleeds.
Well, yeah, of course it puts you up in the nosebleeds, but I mean, at the end of the day,
this could be the answer: having the event in the metaverse. Exactly.
You want to be closer. You want to see it. You sit in the metaverse. You'll be able to look around, see people to your left and right. It'll be a cool experience. So, that's where this gets to be real interesting in the metaverse. Is you get that real world interaction and engagement on the next level that you can't necessarily experience for the same dollar amount.
No.
In what's called IRL, or in real life. But hey, man, I'm all about it. I really am with Lith Token. We're working on physical NFTs, so we're trying to bridge the gap between those digital elements and the physical. So you go to a fight and you want to buy some merch. You know, we'll be able to bridge that so that you also get a t-shirt that's for the metaverse that you get to wear, or somebody else, you can put it on your neighbor or whatever, you know. You have it hanging up in your closet or on a wall, whatever, you know. That's kind of the plan.
Absolutely. So funny stuff. I saw someone post a picture of Dana White, and he's in amazing shape, and I don't know that he's claiming to be 100% natural anywhere, but at 53 years old, you can't blame him if he is using some TRT or whatever.
Oh, he's 100% doing TRT.
Yeah,
he's talked about it. Joe Rogan's talked about it. I mean, these guys do
because he's
that.
got a six-pack. He's 53 years old, but I saw someone make a post.
He's not fighting, so who cares?
You're right, it's fine. I have nothing against it. But I saw someone put up a post that says, Uncle Fester is in better shape than you are.
He does look like Uncle Fester in that photo. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of wish I had that just here. I'm not gonna pull it up.
Right,
by the time I do that, we're gonna be done with this. But you guys should all look at it.
But it's funny.
Dana White ripped. If you Google that, you're probably gonna get the image right away.
And it's funny too, because for those of us that are like in the area of Dana's age and we grow up seeing him there, you know, we know him as kind of a, you know, a peer and fellow Generation X guy. But thinking about it, for the 20-somethings and some 30-somethings, he is kind of like Uncle Fester, I guess, if older bald-headed guy. So,
right.
Never thought about that. But anyway, well, he's a rich Uncle Fester, that's for sure. But
a rich Uncle Fester.
That
is
it, you know. But anyway, I wonder if he knows about the ARXR. Maybe we should see if he's one.
Of course he knows about it. That's the whole point. That's what this is all about. So yeah, Colin.
Good.
I mean,
that's good to know. That's good to know. He may not be able to operate the system, but he knows about it. That's the important thing. Anyway, so.
Dana, out of everybody, probably understands technology. He's paid people to teach him how to do this stuff.
That's true.
You know, there's and you're, no offense, your age, his age, a lot of people, they understand technology. They're the ones in there building it. So
that's it.
I mean,
absolutely, Gen X.
When people tell me, "Oh, it's more difficult for people that are a little older," well, the reality is, no. A majority of the people that have built the technology that we use are my age to your age, Colin.
That's true.
A lot of these younger kids are just using it.
That is true.
Not building it.
That is true. Well, when it comes to technology, I might be somewhat retarded. Although I shouldn't use that word, but, you know, that's just what it is. I think I have some brain damage that affects me in several different ways.
That's possible. It's possible.
It is. I like to throw that out there. So forgive me if I say stupid stuff or don't do the right thing. The intentions are there.
It happens. But I love that everybody's here. I see y'all on Great North Wrestling MMA Power Hour page and the Hannibal TV on YouTube. If you're not on any of those other platforms, make sure to scooch on over to the other ones that we just talked about. Of course, you see at MMA Power Hour. Go and engage and interact. We're not really necessarily super active over there, but we are here. We do engage with you while we're live. That's the cool thing that goes on in this world.
Yes.
And again, head on over to Lith Token. Check out everything that we're doing. Join the Telegram and Discord. Ask questions about the metaverse, because it is coming, and it is coming to the fight world faster than a lot of other places. So definitely get tied in, see what you can get figured out, and let's rock and roll together. Colin, so we've got some fights coming up and a guest tonight, but the fights coming up, let's go over those first.
Let's check it out, man. Speaking of which, congratulations to our guest from a couple of weeks ago, doing just what she and I both said she was going to do. She big sistered Yulia Stolarienko and looked tremendous in winning on her UFC debut out of the Diaz camp. That's Chelsea Chandler. Really, really happy, excited for her victory. And then the rest of the fights were interesting this past week. I don't know what happened in that Mackenzie Dern fight. I was just talking to Adam, and I was saying that let me see how I can phrase this. It looked like her ground and pound wasn't effective against Yan Xiaonan. And Xiaonan is a tough, rugged girl, that's for sure. And Mackenzie's a lifelong grappler, but it just looked like her ground and pound, Xiaonan was virtually laughing at it. And then Mackenzie was looking up at the referee saying, "Aren't you going to stop this fight?" And it looked like he was kind of saying, like he was laughing at it. It's, you know, so I think that the ground and pound from some of the smaller women is not going to be as effective a method of finishing than it would be for the larger women or the men. And that's just kind of a gambler's tip and something I had never really thought of. And there are certainly exceptions, but I think that just women are not going to have that much leverage and shoulder power and upper arm, and arm power necessarily to do that, because Mackenzie was punching and punching and punching, and it didn't look like.
Yeah, you have to be careful saying that though too, because there are some that actually have enough for knockout power, and it also depends on where you catch them. And
yeah, that's true. Although Mackenzie kept on going from mount to back control to mount to back control and throwing ground and pound punches, and but also you're right. It depends who it is, and I think she is a lifelong grappler, and I did point that out, not a striker. So if a striker gets in a top position, possibly they're going to.
It's also location of the strike. Location of the strike
true.
matters
And then elbows
a lot.
come in handy too. Like I know that Jillian's doing really well with stopping things with elbows and some other girls. But anyway, all respect, I thought Mackenzie Dern still did win that fight, winning 3 rounds out of 5, and they gave it to Yan Xiaonan, but it is what it is. Anyway, okay.
I mean, you hit somebody right underneath the ear on the backside, you can knock somebody out. And it has to be well placed.
From a standing position, but from a ground
position, do it from a ground and pound.
You don't necessarily have that leverage.
I've witnessed it from small people.
Yeah, you can.
So,
there's
a lot about water retention too. Water retention actually has a lot to do with it. And these lighter weight girls that are just walking around basically at weight all the time.
Right.
They're going to be retaining enough water that the knockout is actually less likely, more because of that than anything else.
Yeah.
But I mean, the ones that cut, man, they could have a weak jaw, and weak jaw has more to do with those weight cuts than anything else. Not than anything else, but than most people realize.
That is true. But a good fight, good competitive fight.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
But definitely, I think Dern was 2-1 favorite and lost, and I don't know. Anyway, all right, you want to go back to the card we were looking at for this Saturday, or is someone making some comments?
Yeah, hey Bobo, you're sitting there saying that we should put the guest in the title. You know what? We were doing that for quite a while, and we decided to go ahead and do surprise guests every week. It seems to have worked out well for us, so just throwing that out there.
Yeah, we're mixing up, Bobo. We always used to put the guests and put it out there and everything, and we may still go back. We might mix it up, but we're having some fun having it be surprise guests and see if people are willing to tune in and be surprised.
And we've got Jeremy King jumping in on the comment about age and technology. He's saying Gen Xer here, and I grew up with Oregon Trails only.
Oregon Trails? Am I missing?
The game Oregon Trail is what he's talking about. But yeah, it's a game that it was. He has to be a Xenial. He's on the edge of being a millennial. Right, he's like me.
Yeah, right. That's what
he must be 85, 86.
He could be or 2 or 3 years older than you, because I'm an older Gen X. I don't know Oregon Trails, but you do as an older millennial. So right on. Welcome, Jeremy King. Is that King or Kling?
You know what? I'm literally a week and a half cut off from Gen X. So nice. I'm literally a Xenial.
There we go. Yeah. Well, I like it. But welcome, Jeremy. Is that King or Kling?
King.
Jeremy, welcome. 78. See, I told you, Adam, he's a little bit older than you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So Oregon Trails, man. Yeah, that must have been. But anyway, I'm so old I can't even remember my name sometimes. But anyway, Jeremy, welcome, Gen X, man. Powerful generation, the last true great generation. Anyway, Dr. Adam Roorda, let's get back to those fight odds and let's see who we have here. And we are talking about UFC Fight Night 212, and lower down on the card.
I just saw a comment about the age. Thank you for saying I look that young. They said is 1990 Gen X.
So what's that?
I gotta go back to this.
He said he was 1978. Wait.
Is 1990 Gen X? Is what
1990
Bobo?
Gen X?
That must be Bobo.
Sorry, Bobo. No, you're a millennial, brother. In fact, he's a younger millennial. Somewhat, yeah. Just for people asking, and I know there's some debate in the exact start years, but most places have Generation X people born between 1965 and 1980. Sometimes it goes out to 81, but 65 to 80.
That goes to 84, buddy.
Well,
it goes to 84.
Because then that would include you as Gen X. But I'm saying what I'm seeing is normally in a lot of places 65 to 80 or 65 to 81 is Gen X.
I think officially it's to 83. And some people say till like what was it at the end of February of 84.
And then but then some say 2 years. And then millennial, from what I'm seeing, was tending to be like
whatever. It's such a stupid debate. Let's get on from it.
And then the last one, Generation Z, people that were born that are like 27 or younger now.
I'm old enough. I don't want people to know where I actually land in years.
Consider us both haggard-looking Generation Z.
I have gray hair and stripes.
We're very old-looking Gen Z guys. That's right, dude. I'm only 24. What happened? Yeah. Something went wrong with the aging process.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, nobody cares. Let's get over to the fight on the 15th.
Parents would care from heaven. Anyway, let me see here. Okay, you want to start with that one? We could go lower than that. We want to start there. So Sam Hughes is a tough girl. Sam Hughes got absolutely owned in her first 2 fights, but she kept on putting out her stuff in her social media. She kept on saying, I'm not discouraged, I'm not broken, and I cheered for her as she won her last 2 fights in a row. She's got some talent. They just matched her up a little bit tough in her first 2 UFC fights. So she's on a 2-fight win streak, Sam Hughes, and they're making her a dog again against a girl who I think is making her UFC debut in Piera Rodriguez. Am I right, or does she have? No, I'm wrong.
She's got one.
She's got one. Okay, she did beat Kay Hansen, who's no longer in the UFC, though. So we got a girl who's 1-0.
She kind of beat the brakes off of her, though. I mean, that was a pretty clear as day fight.
Yeah. So you know what, though? This is a tough fight. I wouldn't want to touch this fight. I like the grit in Sam Hughes. I know that Piera's got a much better record. In fact, at 8-0, Piera's got a much better record against anyone, most likely. But I think Sam Hughes is live in this fight, though. I wouldn't advise betting, though, because I don't know. I don't know how good Piera is. She looks good. I think Sam's going to make it a tough fight. That next fight's very interesting. In fact, let me break this down. So you got Nick Maximov out of the Diaz camp, right?
Yep.
And if we go back to that, to pull him up there, Doctor. So Maximov got his UFC break when he was 23 years old, last year, I believe it was. And it was against, it was against Cody Brundage, who was a tough, gritty wrestler, a tough Michigan guy like myself. And he beat him, and then he beat, in a very close decision, he beat Puna Soriano, who we had on our show a few weeks ago. And then he got just owned by a multiple-time guest on our show, Andre Petrovsky. Now, Jacob Malkoun is a city kickboxing guy, teammate of Israel Adesanya, Kai Kara France, all those guys. He's young as well at 27. If you go down to that last fight, I felt he won that last fight, and several other people I know that watched it did. And we can see who that was. Was it Brendan Allen?
You got to hold on a second.
No problem. It's stuck a little bit. I think, I don't know whether it was Brendan Allen or Jotko or someone. It was someone who was favored, and Malkoun was like a 3-1 dog, and I was on Malkoun the whole time, and I felt he won the fight even though it was close, and they made it a loss, and it was Brendan Allen. Yep. And Brendan Allen just won again. Allen's on like a 5-fight win streak, and I felt Malkoun beat him. So this is an interesting matchup. You got 2 guys coming off a loss, although one of them was decisive loss, getting completely beaten and submitted, which Maximov did, and the other was a really disputed loss in my opinion. They both want to get back on the winning trail. You got a Diaz guy against a city kickboxing guy. I think this is Malkoun's fight. If Maximov ends up on top, though, I tell you what, when we talk to Andre Petrovsky, because Maximov, I think, is a purple belt, maybe purple or brown, and I think so is Petrovsky, but Petrovsky's training with black belts all the time, and when I asked him, I said, didn't Maximov kind of present a threat as a black belt, or wasn't it hard to get that, that Darce choke on him? I think Andre, he was respectful, but he said Maximov didn't really appear to be super slick with his jiu-jitsu. He wasn't disrespectful, but he said when I locked it, he said I was looking for sure for Maximov to start fighting the hands, and he didn't. He didn't at all. And then Andre said, okay, you're gonna just let me slap on the Darce choke, then thank you. So I don't know how good Maximov's jiu-jitsu really is. He's only 24 years old. I would say this, it's better than mine, I'm sure, although I'm a purple belt. But I think what I was leading up to is that if he gets on top of Malkoun, maybe Malkoun's in some trouble jiu-jitsu wise, but Maybe not that much. Anyway, I got Jacob Malkoun in that fight. It's an interesting fight because both are tough guys. Both, I think, are prospects. I just, I like to fade these guys that are under 26 years old. And I think Maximov may just need some more seasoning. A lot of these guys, Adams, that get their break in the UFC at 23 or 24 or 22, that kind of luck out to get a win or two, end up going the other way fairly quickly. But anyway, so I got Malkoun, and Malkoun's a slight dog, I think, isn't he? Yeah. I got the slight dog there, Malkoun. Not enough interest in the next couple of fights after that. Let's go up to...
this is really weird for me to have to do. My monitor went out, so I can't see over here, so I've got to do it this way. So okay. You guys are going to see me looking away.
That's right. You can look at my face as he's looking away.
Make sure we get here, and it doesn't operate as smoothly.
That's
so
an Elvis song. Look away, look away.
And I'll get over here to the...
All right. Okay, there we go. Okay, so these are also interesting fights.
Let's just go here because we're actually
we got some time.
Right about 10 minutes. So
okay, yeah. Okay, so you'll skip. Let's go there. Brandon Royval, we've interviewed. Really good dude. Let's pick that. Okay, 14-6. The Raw Dog. He's 30 years old. Very tall for a flyweight. He's in the lightest weight in the UFC, and he's still like 5'8" or something like that. Coming off 2 wins, he started off his career in the UFC with a couple of wins, and then he did come up against the killer, the champion, Brandon Moreno, not in a title fight, and he lost. And then he did also lose to Alexandra Pantoja, no shame in that. And then he did come back and get a split decision off Rogerio Bontorin, and then did just get a great, beautiful guillotine choke, if you will, on Matt Schnell. So Brandon Royval is back on track.
He's definitely back on track. I think he's a complete beast. I think
but look at this man's
the 2 losses didn't really help him out. Well, I think it's looking at his record.
This guy's a beast also.
I think this fight really makes sense. It's going to be a real banger at the end of the day.
Both guys are top 10. I think
with Askarov being 14-1. I mean, honestly, I put Royval at that caliber. He had a slump, man.
Right.
He had a slump.
A couple. He's better than he was before. I agree. They're a similar age, 29 for Askarov, 34. Here's the weird thing. In that last fight, Askarov was ranked number 3 in the world, or even number 2 going into that last fight, Adam.
We called that fight, though.
We did. I think we did pick Kai Kara-France and it was a big upset. Askarov, I think, literally was a 3-1 favorite. It was almost a foregone conclusion that Askarov was going to beat the brakes off of Kai Kara-France, and then Askarov was going to get the shot against either Davidson Figueiredo or Marino, whoever was holding the title then, because we know they've gone back and forth and back and forth. But instead, the Aussie came in and pretty much dominated, at least close to dominated, against Askarov. So the question mark here is Askarov going to recover from that? Was that a really off night? If Askarov is as good as people think, then he's a 1.5 to 1 favorite here, and he should probably win if he's as good as people thought. But if he's only as good as he was in that last fight against Kai Kara-France, Brandon Royval's got a chance. This is going to be a tough one because going into it, I think they're both top 6. And I think the winner is probably going to be ranked number 3 or maybe even.
I'm going with the dog on this one. I am going to give it to Royval. Yeah. I think he's back on a streak. I think the beast is back.
Yeah, and the Raw Dog. He's such a nice guy too.
I call him the beast because that's what he really is. And yeah, the Raw Dog is. It's always been hilarious.
He's one of the tall, lean guys like you.
Yeah, I know.
In fact, probably. He's like, what, 5'8", 125? That was probably you at like 14 years old or something like that, or 15 years old.
We're about 15, 16, I hit about that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were actually competing in wrestling at that exact height and weight, as Royval.
I mean, I was 5.
Or were you full grown then already?
I was the height I am now.
Okay, so you're a little bit taller, but just as thin. So you were even thinner than Royval when you were.
Yeah, no, dude, I was a twig.
Yeah,
you could see right through me.
5'10", 125. That's
you
hardly ever see those measurements.
Right through me. Right through me.
I love it. But we used to know a guy back in Michigan named Victor. We called him Vic the Walking Stick.
Vic the Walking Stick.
He was like 6 feet, 129. But anyway, okay, so we got the dog there, but that's going to be a dog fight. That's going to be a dog fight. Next one is going to be an interesting fight. Let's click on the Russian first. So Misha Cirkunov is 35 years old, I think. Yeah, let's click on him. I think he's 35. 35. He's been in the UFC for a minute. He's been in the UFC, I think, for like 8 or 10 years. Look at all the green that used to be there, and then look at how it changed to red.
Oh, I know.
He had an 8-fight win streak, and I think 4 of it or 5 in the UFC. Then all of a sudden, he got starched in the first round by Oezdemir 5 years ago. He got smashed in the first round by Glover. 2 very tough guys, by the way. He did come back with a win off over Patrick Cummins, who's no longer in the UFC. He got a flying knee starched in the first round by Johnny Walker.
And that was the beginning of Johnny Walker looking like a...
Right, which is sits for... But then he's come back. Walker's like a cat with 9 lives. Then he came back and he beat Jimmy.
Yeah, him and Royval, man, you cannot discount either one of those guys.
They'll come back, yeah. Okay, so Jimmy Crute was a big win, but since then we've got 3 losses. And here's the weird thing. Cirkunov is 6'3". He was fighting at 205 for the longest time. Well, he went down to 185 2 fights ago. And he was a 3-1 favorite against Krzysztof Jotko. He lost a split decision. I'm going to say it was close, but everyone thought he was going to manhandle Jotko, and he didn't. So then he went against Wellington Turman, who I think had been fighting at 170, and Turman just like armbarred him. I think freaking Cirkunov is supposed to be a black belt. Not that you can't be a black belt, but I don't know what happened there. Misha Cirkunov has not been looking good, and I think he's going back up to 205 because I don't think Menefield has any interest in 185. So let's look at Menefield. So Menefield is the slightly younger, 1 year younger. He's 3 inches shorter, but he's been kind of more on the winning track. He did lose that weird fight to William Knight. And not weird, but I think it was a last second fight, and I think that might have been at like a higher weight or something. But anyway, he lost to William Knight.
Yeah, I was actually surprised by that one. I did call Alonzo on that one.
Yeah, me too. But William Knight's he's a tough. He's like Knight at 6 feet at 205, and he usually on fight day I think weighs probably 230. He's usually the real fire plug out of the guys he fights. But he fought Knight. Knight is 5'10" and was like 230 on fight day, and Knight was even shorter and stockier and just kind of looked like he was even stronger than Menefield. But Menefield's 3 other fights out of his last 4 were victories. He beat Fabio Charant, Ed Herman, and Askar Moshrov, and he's coming off a good win over Moshrov. This is a tough fight here because in Menefield you have a 34-year-old who's never really cracked the top 10. I think at one point he might have been ranked 15, 16 maybe, and this is his chance to kind of maybe really do something against a former contender. The former contender Cirkunov at one point I think was ranked in the top 6 or 7.
I agree with the odds makers on these odds, though.
I think because Misha's on a 3-fight losing streak.
Yep, exactly.
So
I mean, this is a well.
Here's the weird thing.
Mentality has come in and actually keep my contract.
That's what I was going to say. Cirkunov, if he loses this fight, he is out without a doubt. I don't want that. I'm not going to empower that. But 4 fights in a row losing, you got to be out. And so, and at 35 years old, so Misha Cirkunov is fighting here for his career. And I'll tell you what, maybe the last 2 fights at 185, he was just really depleted. In all honesty, a 6'3" guy who's relatively strongly built shouldn't really be fighting at 185 with a large frame. Right? If you're a small frame guy, then you got Kevin Holland, Jalen Turner that fight even smaller. But Misha Cirkunov is a pretty large frame guy. I think probably 185 was ill-advised, and this could be the fight where he's back at full strength. That he comes in there, takes Menefield down and ties him into a knot. I don't know though. On paper, it shouldn't happen, but it scares me enough that I might avoid that fight. But probably Menefield wins. Just the trajectory they're on is decidedly different, but I might stay away from that fight. What do you think, Adam? But we lean toward Menefield?
No, yeah. If I were to bet on this one, this is one I would throw in a parlay with Menefield. Yeah, I agree with the odds makers on it. I would not stay away from this one. But I actually want to throw this one in a parlay.
But you would, okay. Oh, yeah, all right. So you've got some faith. I mean, do you have more faith in fights that you want to bet straight or more faith in fighters that you want to put in a parlay, would you say?
I mean, it depends on the day and the mood.
I guess the odds also. I guess I should have mentioned that. Being that he's 2.5 to 1 favorite, you're not going to make much money on a straight bet.
Right. In that case, that's why I'm saying throw it in a parlay.
Okay,
but the odds, if they were closer, I might do a straight bet.
I see your point. Yeah, I'm scared. They say the animal that's running for his life runs faster than the animal who's running for his dinner.
Yeah, so we are actually ready for our guest. He's ready, so let's get this going because I don't like looking backwards like this. It hurts my neck.
Not a problem.
So let me get this going for us.
Look, you don't have my old neck. I'd probably be breaking off at this point. Skype dance, baby. Let's see if we can.
I can actually make an adjustment. It's not going to look as pretty here, folks, but.
Right. Were you able to see him on that Skype or?
Yeah. He and I communicated.
Oh, okay, but he's not answering. That's weird. But we did say 10 after, which is actually a minute or two from now.
Yeah, but he said he was ready whenever.
Okay, I'm just gonna. We're trying to call Lucas right now on Skype, but no answer. Even though he did say he was ready. Okay, we just sent out a little message there to Team Brennan. I was looking at Lucas's record. We had him on when his record was 1-0 as an amateur. He finished his amateur career as 3-0, and now he's 7-0 as a pro. So he has had 9 straight victories in MMA fighting since we first had him on the show.
Kind of crazy.
Yep.
Dude's a beast, though.
He is. We had him on when he was 17. He's 22 years old now. Yeah, we had him on even before he was a pro.
Yep.
And yeah, he's coming along good, man, and he's just got some great skills, and he's a really good guy. And I think his brother is I think his brother's 20, so I think his brother's got like one more year. I think his brother is like D2 or D1 in wrestling.
It's D1, isn't he?
I think he is, and he's doing very well. All right. Hey, Lucas, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. We got you there. As long as you can see yourself in the screen, then you're good to go. We see you, and everything will look great. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we always do, give the respect to our guests. So happy to have this guest back on the show. A man that we've talked to since he was 17 years old and had a record of 0-1 as an amateur. The man has since gone on 9-fight win streak, 3-0 to finish his amateur career, 7-0 as a pro. We were talking about the man they call Skywalker, Lucas Brennan. Welcome back to the show, Lucas.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So glad to see you, man, and always glad to talk to you. I think this is the first time in 2022. So in all honesty, I don't think there's a year that we've done this show that we haven't talked to you. If there was, it was maybe only 1 year, but I know we talked to you in 17. I know we talked to you in 18, 19. If we missed you in one of the pandemic years, it's possible. But I think that we pretty much talk to you every single year, and we're grateful to do that, man. So happy to see you have your last win. So what I've noticed is that you had a good streak of submitting everybody or stopping everyone until you had a good competitive fight with Andrew Salas, and it looks like you came back with fury because you have finished all 3 fights in the first round since that Salas fight. Did something make you mad in that fight, or what happened that you have come back? Did that offend you that this guy actually went the distance with you? Why these results since then?
Not particularly. I mean, I enjoyed that decision a lot. That was a fun fight, and no, I wouldn't say anything particularly came back. I think I focused less on that fight, on finishing, and I was really happy with my volume and whatnot. And so, like, I enjoy that decision a lot, even though it definitely is the outlier. I think out of the 7 fights, it's clearly very different from the rest.
Yeah.
But I strayed away that fight, and even the fight before, from attacking submissions as much. And guys made it very difficult because my first 2 fights were very much the same looking fight. And I was able to do something different for like 2 fights, and I was like, all right, let's bring it back to the roots. And but no, it's just the last 3 guys were tough guys. They were extremely tough guys, and I just had to, I had to approach it appropriately, and I wish them the best. But yeah, I made sure to go out and do what I had to do.
Absolutely. And I know your jujitsu is, I've got to say, it's not like I know your life 100%, but from knowing and interviewing your dad and knowing you since you were 17, I believe I have some knowledge of the Brennan curriculum. So I know your first art in the martial arts world that you trained in was jujitsu under your dad, and then it was wrestling in school, and then it was learning your striking after that, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So basically, yeah, your bread and butter, the submissions, and yeah, they looked really really good there. And it's interesting because people gotta know that you have that sort of skill, and that's sort of interesting because you know what? I shouldn't say embarrassing, because I think when I first talked to you, I hadn't got my purple belt yet. So as an older guy, I did get my purple belt. I've been staying at purple for about 3 years because I haven't trained much since the pandemic. But I've had the years in there, so I have a lot of more knowledge from what I'm looking at. I just haven't earned the belts there. But coming from a perspective of someone that has some knowledge, people gotta know your jujitsu skill when they're in there, and that yet they can't stop it, and it's interesting because you would think that when people are going to face Lucas Brennan, they're going to train their jiu-jitsu. They're going to, if not train their jiu-jitsu trying to stop you, train their jiu-jitsu defense. And as you know well, as a jiu-jitsu black belt, defense comes easier than offense when you're learning jiu-jitsu, especially early on, right? So you've got to figure these guys have to be training and thinking, I'm going to stop Luke from submitting me. I'm not going to give him my neck. I'm not going to give him my arm. I'm not going to let him get in deep on my legs. He's not going to submit me. Why are they not successful at that, do you think?
I mean, not that they're, I would imagine they're training it. I would hope so. Right, in the same way that I'm training specifically for them. I would hope that they are training it. But I think there's levels as far as jiu-jitsu goes, and while it is MMA, it's not pure jiu-jitsu in that sense. I think very much of it is applicable and transfers over, and and what sucks, like if you want to look at it from the other guys' perspective, none of them did anything wrong. Like the last three guys didn't. I don't feel that they did anything on a technical level that was wrong. They were doing the right counters. They were trying to do the right things. They just couldn't. They couldn't get it off before I could. And like watching it, I was like, this guy didn't clearly like stick his neck out and give it to me. He was trying to do the right thing, and I think, but no matter how much jiu-jitsu defense they're working, if I'm constantly, even though they're doing the right thing, I'm doing the next best thing.
Right.
I'm on a head, and and it's no disrespect to them. They're doing the right stuff. I just think it's respectfully not enough in the moment, and I would hope that they're doing jiu-jitsu defense and wrestling defense. I'm sure there are, and in my division, there's some good wrestlers. There's some tough guys that I'm sure it'll come to that with, but that's just it's the game.
Yeah, you make a good point. The speed comes in there and the transitioning, and I know from your dad's training and I know once in a while I get this wrong, but it's next generation jiu-jitsu, right?
Yes.
And that's the Chris Brennan schools, and there's 10 around the world now?
Roughly. Yeah. Top of my head, I'm not totally sure, but it's around that number.
Nice. And so, you guys just really good at transitions, and the speed and the transitions, and that makes sense. And that is a clear answer. And it's just that, so the guys weren't making mistakes, just your speed and your transitions were a step ahead.
I think there was a comfortability of like, I'm in positions that I'm more comfortable in, I guess. I think while there's that anxiety of fighting that we're both experiencing, right, while we're in there, there's a little bit of anxiety behind everything you're doing. I think I find I'm more comfortable in some of those positions than they are. And perhaps when we're getting in there, they start freaking out a little more because we're now in a position where their coach told them they're probably screwed.
Right.
And so they're starting to get, anxious, and I'm starting to relax a little more and enjoy it a little bit more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing I wonder also, I wonder if they would ever start differentiating in a submission finish for the records, saying, was this a submission that came with strikes to soften the person up and to get the position, or was it just a purely jiu-jitsu submission without any strikes? It doesn't matter, because MMA is MMA. It doesn't diminish anything. But you notice when someone wins an MMA fight against a far superior jiu-jitsu guy, it's not because he just caught him. It's because he caught the guy was exhausted, the guy was rocked, the guy was almost unconscious, right? Because I would imagine if your dad stomped on your head a few times, I could probably catch you in a submission. And then so but were you in these last 3 finishes, did you throw in a good amount of ground and pound, or were there any key strikes from the ground first? Or not really?
In the last one, I was throwing quite a bit from the back, and I was in a position with the body triangle on the back for a little while. Like I was there a little longer than I needed to be, but I was able to throw some good uppercuts from the back. The 2 previous to that, not really. I didn't really get to throw a whole lot, only because of I was in a complicated position in both of them. I was in a position where, sure, I could have sat up and thrown, but the fight probably wouldn't have ended. He probably would have been able to make room between us and gotten away. And so, 3 fights back, I fought Matthew Skibicki, and but the way we were on the ground, he caught a body kick that I threw and shot on me, and I was immediately on his neck from that point. I was never in a position to really throw. And even the next guy I had fought was Ben Lugo, who's very tough, and got in a big wrestling scramble. I was on top and threw very briefly. I was in a tough spot where if I were to loosen up, he could have tried to take my back. So, I was trying to settle the position in and trying to really settle on the takedown. He turned up into me. I was on his neck. So, those 2 had very, very limited, if any, ground and pound. But the last one, I was able to get some off and try and soften him up a little bit, and that one was fun.
Yeah.
That guy was very tough. He did that to the previous guys he fought, and so I like being on that end of it.
Absolutely. Good to get in some ground and pound. Speaking of which, I was talking to my co-host before this about this last weekend's UFC fights. I'm not trying to divert from Bellator, but I know you probably watch different organizations and you're training with different guys that are also in the UFC. Did you get a chance to watch the main event with Mackenzie Dern and Yao Xiaonan Yan?
I've seen bits and pieces of it. I wasn't actually able to catch the card. I was in the middle of something, but I know the results.
Yeah. So I don't know if you noticed. Sorry to interrupt you, but in the last round, I think it was, Mackenzie got a lot of really good position on the ground. She was switching from mount to back control to mount to back control, and the thing that I noticed, and they are smaller girls. They fight at 115, second smallest division there is. But what I noticed was that her ground and pound was literally having no effect on her opponent. It almost looked to me like her opponent was laughing at her ground and pound. And Mackenzie was trying to throw all this stuff, and her opponent was kind of looking at it. This feels like someone's just flicking my head, or like a child is slapping me. And Mackenzie was looking at the referee to say, can you stop it? Can you give me a break? I'm landing 85 ground and pound punches. And he was like, you're not hurting her at all. And I was right. And I'm thinking to myself, I understand the mechanics, and some women are beasts. Some women have a great ground and pound. Mackenzie grew up not training striking. I don't think she even started training striking until she was your age. So it was a little bit of a late start to start training striking. But she was doing good maintaining the position. If you look at the physicality of both women, Jan looked like the bigger girl. Jan looked like she had a lot of weight in her abs and probably was physically stronger and 7 or 8 pounds heavier. And so Mackenzie didn't want to lose a position. She didn't want to just get bucked off, you know. But was there anything that could have been done, do you think, by Mackenzie if the ground and pound wasn't doing anything? I mean, couldn't she have, you know, not only that, but you know how if you're getting someone who's keeping their chin really low because they know the choke's coming, you know how you can just take the palm of your hand on their forehead and just pull their head up so that you can then get your leg. I was just wondering, like, I didn't, you know, it seemed like Mackenzie, who was on a much higher level as a black belt, wasn't able to do anything with this girl, even with all the superior positions. And no disrespect to Mackenzie Dern, but did that surprise you, or what do you think went wrong there?
I mean, ground and pound wise, it's weird that there wasn't a ton of power behind it, but some of it also might be the fact that like what I have found is it is very difficult to just sit in knee on belly or the mount and throw. My decision, Andrew Salas.
Right.
I did a ton of ground and pound. I outstruck him 210 to 1 on the fight. Right. But I couldn't stay in a position for longer than 15 seconds. You know, I mounted him and threw. But if the bottom guy's smart, he's going to try and get out when you sit up to throw. So I sit up and I'm throwing, and he's eating the punches to get out. And so I dismount, I go to side control, I throw some more. But when I sit up to throw again, he's immediately trying to get out. Like that is the right thing to do, is like, hey, I'm going to eat 4 or 5 punches, but my position's going to get better, right? So that was his mindset. And I imagine that was her mindset, was like, Mackenzie's going to hit me, but I'm going to be, if I can continue to move, right, I'll live. And some of it, I think, like, Mackenzie probably would have benefited from just, like, hone in on a position. Don't even worry about, like, hitting her. Hone in on a position and work, like, if she wants to finish her, probably work a submission from there. Because clearly Mackenzie Dern has fantastic jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And a jiu-jitsu athlete. And, you know, like, I've watched her compete for a very long time. Okay. And she would benefit more from, like, settling in somewhere and just hone in on, like, a submission there. Like, even if you under their neck, like I have found, I've stopped trying to dig under their neck.
Okay.
My last fight, like, I have found that if I just start choking your face, you're either going to get so uncomfortable, you're going to tap.
Yes.
And I'm going to choke you. And your training partners don't like that method. But if you're fighting some dude or some woman, right, like, I think sometimes you grit it a little bit. Like, it may not, on a technical level, it may not look perfect, right? But it's going to get the job done. And I think maybe she wasn't throwing heavy ground and pound because she was scared of losing the position, which I understand.
Yeah, But sorry to interrupt you. The face crank, kind of like Habib did to Conor McGregor a few years ago, right?
It works. Like, it's what I did in my last fight. Like, I was not even kind of under the neck, and I'm on your back, but I want to make eye contact with you. Like, I'm twisting your head around. Like,
nice.
Just something. What you find is that he's so uncomfortable that he's going to look up because his jaw's hurting, right? Face hurting, and you're going to choke him, or the pain's going to be so much he's going to tap, right? You're gonna like muffle him over his mouth, like there's a clip, and I have no idea who the fighters are, but it's an old clip, and the guy's choking someone, and he's on his back choking him, and he's over the face, he's over the jaw,
right?
And while he's squeezing, you just see this go punk, and he breaks his jaw.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't even remember who the fighters were, and it's such an old video.
Right.
And fired to be that guy for years.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
But that's the idea. Like, I just think sometimes you get, like, Mackenzie might, like, grab a submission and be like, oh, it's not there, and you, like, grab a submission and you're like, oh, it's not there, and you'll just kind of, like, throw, like, stuff, and you're like, man, like, if you just take that and you just throw some power into it and just commit to the submission, even if it doesn't end up being there, there's a middle ground of committing to it and not blowing your arms out, right? But just getting there, really put some effort into it, and if it's not there, then whatever, right?
Exactly.
There's a lot of gray area to play with when you want to ground and pound and submit them.
For sure.
Yeah.
Could I ask you, do you think, because I almost don't remember seeing a women's fight where there's like a cross face or a face crank. Do you think for some reason women are not feeling they have the squeeze for that?
I don't know. That's a good question. The only time I can think of, and it didn't actually end up working, is I think Liz Carmouche and Rhonda.
Yes.
Liz briefly took her back and had her face twisted, right?
Yes.
I think it was that. It was really old. But she obviously didn't get it. But that's like the only instance I can think of.
Yes.
Yeah, see it a lot, and even when you get more, but you still don't see it a lot because everyone wants the pretty under the neck, tucked behind the head,
right,
whatever.
Right.
And like, man, it doesn't look pretty. It doesn't have to. Like, if he taps, he taps.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, and you know, another thing that I think was part of the issue was Mackenzie had no wrestling background. And I think that's one thing, right? That's one thing. Sorry about that. What'd you say?
I said that's upsetting to me.
Yeah. And that's something that is a problem in a lot of women's MMA fights. And I think your dad did you a service by getting you and your brother into wrestling, because he didn't have the wrestling background you had, although he seemed to be a quick learner of it. But there's a difference between learning it and being good at it from when you're a kid. And I think that was a problem. I think Mackenzie was able to get it to the ground with some scrambles and maybe with just a kind of a body lock and just like putting everything she could into getting the takedown. But if you notice one thing I know, I didn't have a wrestling background, but I started training jiu-jitsu on and off. Even though I'm only a purple belt now, it's because years would go by that I would be on and I would be off. But I trained with a lot of wrestlers, and I started to get a little bit of that strength from starting to do that at a younger age, even though I still never got the strength that you guys have. But the ability for you guys to be able to anchor yourself in and lower your hips and make yourselves feel like you're double or triple your weight is crazy. And I was looking at Mackenzie at a couple points when she had back control and she had Jan's stomach on the ground. And I was like, flatten her out. Lower your hips, and she just couldn't. And I think that might have been the lack of wrestling. Would you agree?
Yeah. Wrestlers have that, like you find rolling with them. They're incredibly hard to sweep. They're incredibly hard off balance, right?
Yes.
Like and it's weird because that's not something that I feel like is in wrestling specifically covered. Like, at no point in a wrestling practice has the coach ever been like talking about like your center of gravity and how your base needs to be. That you just kind of you get into the technique and having a stance and whatever,
right? And
then you pull, and that becomes like an attribute that everybody attributes to wrestling. And you're like, I never really learned that. Like, it just kind of came with the ability of wrestling.
Interesting.
But it's what I think a lot of jiu-jitsu guys and girls suffer from is not wrestling. Like, it's Ryan Hall is like my favorite example of that.
Right.
Yeah, fantastic jiu-jitsu, very good jiu-jitsu, and he's doing it in the UFC and he's doing it in fights. But he has good like sport jiu-jitsu. Like, you know, he's crazy like Berimbolo, Deli Evo work.
Yeah.
All of his very Jeff Glover-esque. It's very strange. It's very like off-brand.
Right.
And but he has no wrestling. He has no wrestling whatsoever. If he taps, it's because he's like tumbled into you, right? He's hit some sort of roll. And even like Damian Maia, like I love him, but his basic wrestling wasn't great. He just mauled you until he had a hold of you.
Right.
And
kept shooting.
Screwed. But like he just him, Mackenzie, like there's just jiu-jitsu guys that don't have any sort of wrestling, and it's upsetting because it's like, how do you plan on doing the jiu-jitsu part?
Right.
I can't just pull guard, right? Like, people try it, but like, you know, how successful is that later on?
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating because the two should be something you have to have. Even strikers, like even strikers that don't have good wrestling, how do you want to strike with someone at all times if you can't stop a takedown?
Right.
Right. Take you down. If you got good striking, I don't want to strike with you, right?
Yep.
And so I think wrestling is the hardest of all the martial arts to like really be good at, and it's the hardest on your body, I think. And no one wants to do it.
No,
you know?
No.
Fun. I'm not a striker at all, but I love boxing. I love training it. It's fun.
Nice.
I love it too. I don't like doing wrestling. I wrestle, but I don't like doing it. But like, you know, it's part of the game, and it's something I'm doing. But still, like, sometimes you're just like this is terrible.
Yeah.
But it's but people don't do it and they skip
No.
it. It just becomes a hole in their game later.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's so hard to do. I mean, for people that don't know, I think a lot of people have embraced jiu-jitsu because you can do jiu-jitsu at any age, even though it's harder the older you get. And I'm sure you know that. I'm sure your dad's told you that, even though your dad's a stud and he can probably do it till the day he dies. But it's all hard. But I'll tell you what, the wrestling, I'm in the range of your dad's age, and I first started to do a little bit of wrestling only like 4 or 5 years ago, and it's just brutal. It's insane. I mean, it's really bad.
It is incredibly difficult to start later on, and like just before this, I finished running my wrestling practice with all the high school kids, and it is like that age group is perfect because they have all the energy, they have all the free time to do it, and they're just at, you're at that age where like you really don't get hurt a whole lot. You're just like whatever.
Right.
And something that's so hard to start later, and as hard as like we make jiu-jitsu as fighters, jiu-jitsu's always been branded as the gentle arts, right?
Yes.
It's what everyone can do. Everyone of all ages can do it. Like Alio was doing it until he was like well
90.
into his.
Yep.
He was doing, like every day. And so like it's something that if you have the right partners, you can always do. But like wrestling is something, you cannot always do it. Like it is just there's an do it that can't be taken out of it. It's so hard to do it at such a light level that physically you'll live to be able to do it for forever. It's just it doesn't have the same like lifespan.
No, exactly. And in reality, unless you're your dad, messing around with wrestling in your 50s is just something you really just don't want to do. It's just unless you want to not be able to walk around for the rest of the week. It's it's something, just don't bother with it, but when you can learn it and you're young, it's great. Okay, well, I don't want to keep you more than maybe like say 5 or 7 more minutes, if that's okay, but I want to throw some rapid fire questions at you here while we have you. Okay, is anything signed yet for your next fight?
Yes, yeah. So I have a date, November 18th, right? I'm fighting on Bellator 288. They haven't really publicized my opponent yet. I know my opponent is, but I'm going to save that because no one's posted it yet, so I don't want to trouble. But yeah, have an opponent, have a date. Yeah, November 18th in Chicago.
Excellent.
So we're roughly 6.5 weeks out. From this Friday, it'll be 6 weeks out. I'm excited.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Awesome. I like that. Can't wait to see that. I wish I could be there. I won't be able to, but I'll definitely watch it. But here's some advice, honestly, and you're a grown man at 22, so you don't really necessarily need advice. And if you wanted advice for someone old or older, you got your dad. But with all respect to someone that likes you, apparently it's like a war zone there. So be really careful if you're going to go out trying restaurants or trying any clubs or anything. Don't.
I've heard plenty.
Good.
I did an interview for my last fight in Connecticut.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Connecticut.
Right.
I fought there 4 times. I'm over it. But I did like a stint in this interview just talking trash about Connecticut. And I was talking with that guy the other day. He's like, I'll see you in Chicago. And I was like, yeah, I swear I will not talk any trash about Chicago.
Right. Yep.
I was like, I want to live to see the card happen.
Right.
I was like,
yep.
I'm not going to be wearing a mask when I'm up there, but I might wear a vest, man.
Right, exactly. It's a war zone, pretty much. Sadly.
I will be staying in the hotel,
Good.
Ever since Ferris Bueller, Chicago's never been the same. It's been all downhill.
Yep. Seems that way. It absolutely seems that way. Okay, cool. You said that's November 22nd?
18th.
Cool. We'll keep that in mind. Okay, some big fights coming up I want to get your opinion on. There were some interesting fights in Bellator. Carlisle against McKee. I had a feeling that would be a tough fight. Carlisle is a tough guy. Was Carlisle, I forget, Carlisle went in there managed by someone good. I know you've been doing some training with James Krause. Was Carlisle with Krause or was that someone else?
I'm blanking on who Carlisle was with, but it wasn't Krause. We were just up there.
Okay.
I'm home for the week right now, but I've been up with James Krause for the last 2 weeks. No, it wasn't with him.
Okay.
That's a good question. I forget who he's with actually.
No problem.
He's tough though. He's
Yeah.
very tough.
Yeah, without a doubt, it was a good fight, and that was 55, and I think AJ is going to stay there, which is great. Do you have several more fights in you at 45, or is each fight making you want to make it the last?
These have actually, the last 3 fights have been the best weight cuts I've ever had.
Beautiful.
Like from any weight, they've been the best weight cuts I've ever had. I plan to stay at 45. You know, I want to stay at 45 for as long as I can.
Nice.
Clearly, I'm still young. I'm sure there's some growth in there a little bit, but you know, like I'm done growing, and
Yep.
for as long as I can, I'd prefer to stay at 45. You know, there was a while where the cuts were getting increasingly harder, and I think that was like it was a hole that I think we plugged with my diet and my regulating my water, and some of it was like the quarantine they had us doing, which is way looser.
Right.
But the quarantine was rough. We were flying into quarantine, and you had to stay in your room for 2 days. You came out on the cut day, like you came out on the day you need to cut.
Oh wow.
You're just locked in a room for 2 days. You're trying to work out, but like we're trying to hit mitts in between the hotel TV and the lamp and the 2 beds. Like there's it's so impossible to get you know your workout routine in. And so like the one time, like I missed weight once, which was really upsetting. Like I've missed weight once out of 10 total fights and like 400 matches. Like I was so upset.
Bad. Yeah, I can imagine, but still, it's not bad. But I know what you're saying. That's not your habit.
And yeah, but like you know, it's hard to. It's hard. I had to make weight after that, right? But the cuts really honed in on fixing the diet and fixing like how we work out and how we do the cut. And I used to cut way more than I do now. Like I cut, you know, more than half or less than half of what I used to.
Beautiful.
Way better. And so, you know, I'd prefer to stay at 45 for as long as I can. You know?
That makes sense. And I would think usually guys don't start getting naturally thicker until they're maybe 28. And that gives you a long time. Plus, I think by that time, you probably would start transitioning to 55 or whatever. But yeah, I think you got a good amount of years at 45. Okay, questions on some big upcoming fights. The big UFC card you might be aware of, UFC 280, October 22nd, one of the sickest cards I've seen in years. I think it's got 8 different fights that have people in the top 10, even like the top 6 in each fight. The main event, Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev. You also have TJ Dillashaw, Aljamain Sterling. Then you have Beneil Dariush, Mateus Gamrot. You've got like I can't believe that I'm forgetting some other fights on that card. But let me see if I can pull it up and get your opinion maybe for like a minute on each fight. Let me see if I can pull it up really quick here. My producer, Dr. Adam Roorda, had to take a little jump to attend to something else real quick. So let me go back here and find that. There we go. And there's UFC 280. And there it is, fight card. Okay. And here we go. And that's going to be Makhachev versus Oliveira, the main event. And then the other cards I already mentioned, it's going to be from Abu Dhabi. And there we go. You're going to have Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley. Caitlin Chikagian, Manon Fior, Belal Muhammad, Sean Brady. You know, and then even these other, and then you got Nikita Krylov against Uzdemir. You got a really tough guy in Caio Borralho versus Miradov. But let's just go to the more well-known out of all these. Let's start at the bottom and come up. So Belal Muhammad and Sean Brady, like Sean Brady has been killing it. And he even went in kind of a little bit of a modified rules grappling contest and beat Craig Jones. Although a lot of the jiu-jitsu people will say the no leg locks probably might have had some effect on how that went. But still, Brady's a stud. What do you think, though? Belal is at his highest confidence. How do you see that fight going?
Tough, but yeah, and Belal's tough. Like I don't know how his jiu-jitsu is in comparison.
Right.
You know, Belal. I know he's got good striking. Like you know,
pretty good wrestler too.
Anger, yeah, clearly from both of them. And so, I mean, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I hope for a grapple fest, but I imagine that you know, clearly we got a guy that's going to try and go to the ground. That looks like a good fight.
Yeah. Would you be on the fence there, or would you lean one way or the other?
What's that?
Would you be on the fence as far as being able to pick a winner, or could you lead one way or the other? Lucas? Luke, did we lose you? Sorry.
Make a good judgment on that.
So yeah, you got kind of muted, but you're on the fence on that one. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, what was the other one? Jan and
Okay, yeah. How about
Jan and O'Malley?
Piotr Jan and Sean O'Malley.
I like Jan. I don't know how I feel about O'Malley. He's good. Clearly, he's very good. He's hard to like as a personality.
Yeah.
For me, like I understand why. But I with getting demons. I think Jan's just such a tank.
Yeah.
Like he's just like he just gets hit so he just has that like Russian like I'm just gonna walk through whatever you could possibly hit me with.
Yep.
Like I like him. I think Jan takes that.
Okay.
As good as O'Malley is, yeah, I'm going Peter.
Gotcha. How about Benil Dariush against the man from Poland, Mateusz Gamrot?
And Dariush has been.
Go ahead.
Benil Dariush.
Yes.
He's been on it. He's been on a roll for a while, and like under the radar a little bit. Like he's been fighting for a long time.
Yes.
For a very long time, but like very recently, he's been on a good stint.
9-fight win streak,
and no one really paid attention until he was running over Ferguson.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Man, he's very, very tough. Was it 55?
Yes, lightweight.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a big 55. I mean, I like him in that. I don't know too much about the Polish guy, just off the top of my head. But I've been watching Darren for a long time.
Yeah, us too. We've interviewed Benil several times. He's a really good guy. The Polish guy, Gamrot, came off a big win in the main event about 3 months ago against the Armenian guy, Arman Sarukian, who had been on a killing streak. And Gamrot, as a 2-1 dog, did win that fight, although it was real close. But that's going to be a close fight. Okay, let's get down to the final two. Aljamain Sterling and TJ Dillashaw.
I struggle with a favorite in that one. I liked Aljamain for a long time, and now I just feel weird about him ever since the first Jan fight.
Yeah.
Like I just don't know how to feel about him since then. And then TJ with all like his stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I have a favorite in that fight. Like I think TJ is better on the feet. And what I think is going to happen is if Aljamain tries to take him down, he's going to realize TJ has that alpha male wrestling.
Yeah.
As much as I'm not a huge fan of him, he obviously has fantastic striking, but all those guys have good wrestling. And just off the top of my head, I'm not sure who's really been like taking him down in fights before. You know, they both have good wrestling, but I think TJ's defense probably nullifies it. And they're able to stay on the feet. Aljamain's wild on the feet, but I think that goes to TJ. Like his actual like Ludwig style is very beneficial.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, the final one. Give me like 2 minutes on this one. Because this is the one that has so many people on pins and needles, right? And especially grapplers. I mean, like, right? See what you're saying, right? You know, of Oliveira against Islam Makhachev. What were you saying?
I just think it's going to be such a grapple fest. Like, and I hope it is. Like, not that they're both good on the feet, but clearly they have their wrestling and their jiu-jitsu is so high level.
Yeah.
And while I don't think Oliveira's wrestling is on that level, I don't know if I'd want to be on top of him.
Right.
Like, I don't know as Islam that I'd want to take him down. Who wants to be in his guard? Like, I wouldn't want to be on top of him. He's so slick. But also, neither one of them, I imagine their game plan is to stand and bang. So I hope that it's just a big grapple fest, and I'll get to enjoy that. But that's me, you know, from a fan, from a more whatever fan, you'd probably get a different answer. But like, you know, I love that style, and
right.
I hope Oliveira can get out of the trend of getting dropped in the first round and then coming back. Like I think his last three. I think his last three
Yeah,
fights.
he gets
He gets
hurt always. It seems like.
he gets dropped, and it's not like he gets like wobbled. He gets dropped hard in the first round, and then comes back and just kills him. And it's like I'd like to see him not do that again. We just stray away from eating someone on the feet first. Because like after a while of getting hit, you're a good black belt, but eventually it goes brown belt,
Yeah.
purple belt,
Yep.
blue. So it's just like just save those brain cells for later. I'm going for Oliveira. I'm behind Oliveira, but I think in reality it's anyone's fight. But I'm pulling for the jiu-jitsu guy.
Absolutely. I think so too. It's going to be amazing. Well, Lucas Brennan, I can't wait to see your next fight, November 18th in Bellator from Chicago. It's going to be great. Also staying at featherweight 145. I'm glad the cuts are getting easier. I think it's a great spot for you. Tell us really quick, because we got to go in 1 minute, any merch you have or any website or anything wherever we can go to support you. Let us know.
I just have a basic Facebook like everyone else, just under my full name, and then obviously I have Instagram, which is just Lucas Brennan MMA. TikTok actually is the same, Lucas Brennan MMA on there. Merch wise, you gotta check out my gym, Next Generation MMA. We sell all sorts of gear with me on it. So, but outside of that, man, that's all I got.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, man. The man they call Skywalker, Lucas Brennan, Bellator, top 145 featherweight in contention. Hope to see you fighting for the title one day soon. You're amazing. It's great talking to you ever since you were 17. Huge respect to you and to your dad, Chris Brennan, the West Side Strangler. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us, Luke. Really appreciate you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
Thanks. And that was Lucas Brennan, Dr. Adam Roorda. Since he was 17, we've talked to him when he first came on the show with his dad, and I'm really happy with how it's gone. His skills are really good. I remember years ago, the only guys that had wrestling on a high level and jiu-jitsu on a high level were literally Jake Shields, Maya, and his wrestling wasn't even that great, but it was improving. And then maybe Chris Weidman, even though you never got to see his jiu-jitsu that much. But I think that there still are not a lot, as I think Mackenzie Dern showed. She's a top 5 contender, and she didn't really have any wrestling to offer, and she's still a top 5 contender. So I really think with Lucas's wrestling being really high level, I think his brother's D1, and he trains with his brother frequently. You maybe can't call him D1, but I think his wrestling is very high level. He's wrestled since he was like 3 years old, and he's done jiu-jitsu since he was like 2 years old. So I think that he's a stud. And at 22, there's really no rush. I think they're doing it the way that AJ McKee did it, and McKee's dad, Antonio McKee, is for a young guy. They didn't try to put him in against killers until he was like 24, 25.
Right.
And by that time, AJ was ready, and he was a champ briefly, and now he's a top contender. And I think Lucas Brennan, how many more fights at 22 would you give him, Adam, before he starts fighting someone that's really dangerous? Maybe 2 or 3 more? Another year or 2 or 6 months? What do you think?
That's a hard question. Yeah, I would wait another year.
I think so.
Maybe 2.
I think so, because he still doesn't even have his full grown man strength. And this is not putting him down. He could choke me out and punch us in about 2 seconds and knock me out in 1 second. So he's a strong man, but I mean, like at 22, you're not even close to as strong as you're going to be when you're 27, 28.
I mean, just step him up,
Yeah, gradually keep on going with better and better guys. And I think they are. But yeah, I mean, because everyone wants to see a guy like him.
Don't be afraid to throw right under the top of the top.
Right.
Like a top 10 guy in Bellator, don't be afraid to do that.
No, I agree.
A top 5 guy even, but don't necessarily try to go straight for
the top 3 guys.
The top 3 guys.
Yeah, exactly. Because at 45, there's a bunch of very good guys. Once in a while, I confuse the bantamweights at Bellator with the featherweights, but still, there are some really good guys at 45. And it looks like McKee is gone and will stay at 155, but that's great because I think their families were friends, and it's good they don't have to fight. But you still have Pitbull, the Patricio. You've still got I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. I think Archuleta is there.
Yep.
Patchy Mix, I think, might be there unless he's 35. Our friend Rafael Stotts is the champ, but that is at 35. That's at bantamweight. So there are some other really good guys at 45. I'm just forgetting a few of their names now, but I think maybe a year from now. Maybe
it happens. But hey, man, it's been a great episode here. I know this is kind of a short one for everybody out there. Make sure to like, comment, share, tweet, retweet, do whatever you can to help get word out about everything that is MMA Power Hour and the Hannibal TV. We do try to bring this to you every week. We're not here every single week ever, but we do try to come at you every week that we can with at least one guest. We're going to keep it a surprise for a while. That was brought up during this episode. We'll keep it a surprise, and then after the episode, if you want to tune in because of the guests, then great. But we like to keep surprises coming. We do have the most legitimate guests of all the, we'll call it independent MMA news sources. So just keep at us, keep with us, and hang in there through the week between now and next week. And definitely check out Lift Token when you get the opportunity as well. Colin, thank you for another great episode. I am going to pass this over to you, but I am tapping out.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adam Roorda, for everything you do, man. It's been a treat working with you for close to 6 years now, and always appreciate your contribution. The show always looks beautiful, and all the great things you have to say is truly valued. So, everyone, thank you so much. Our guest was Lucas Brennan. Lucas Brennan, the man they call Skywalker. The man is 7-0 in the UFC. Sorry, in the Bellator featherweight division. 7-0 in Bellator. Fighting some good guys. He's got 6 submissions. 3-0 as an amateur, so overall he's got 10 wins in his competitive MMA fighting career, and super talent, really good high school wrestler, and his brother's D1. He trains with him. His jiu-jitsu he's a black belt, and a legitimate black belt under his father, Chris the West Side Strangler Brennan, a multiple-time Brazilian jiu-jitsu national champion, and I think even world champion a couple times. That's about it. Go ahead and spread the love in a positive way, everyone. Be that guy, be that girl. Become more kind and gentle to yourself. Take good care of your pets. It's going to change from hot weather to cold weather. Make sure they have a warm place and cold water to drink, and have medical care when they need it. And that's about it. I really appreciate you guys for supporting us. And if anyone wants to support us and help our budget, throw us a donation, hit us up. We'll tell you how. Otherwise, just watching and participating and telling a friend and sharing and liking would be truly appreciated. Thanks again for the entire team at the MMA Power Hour. This has been Colin Crandall, and for tonight, I am tapping out.